What's up everyone? Alex here. So I've been thinking about video ideas over the past week or so, and one of the things that I started asking myself is, what are the things that I love about JRPGs? And the very first thing that came up, and then of course story, was the characters, because without the characters, you didn't have these amazing dynamics within those groups, as well as interesting mechanics, especially if those games featured different classes and different builds for each character. So I actually started thinking of which games really affected me the most in terms of its characters, and I narrowed it down to 7 different games. Now, this isn't all-encompassing, this isn't every single JRPG I played, because chances are you probably have played a lot of other really amazing JRPGs that have great characters as well. And let's face it, I can't remember every single JRPG I've played over the past 45 years, and I trust that you will name a game that I'm just gonna be like, yep, actually, that's one of the games that I should have probably put on this list. So post your favorite JRPGs with fantastic characters in the comments below. We've got quite a list to get through, so let's just jump right into it. If you've never played a single Trails game before, you owe it to yourself to start with Trails from Zero, because the SSS is quite possibly my favorite group of ragtag investigators in the entire series history. And because there are 2 games in this arc, I'm also inclined to include Trails to Azure as well. What's great about these games is the sense of intimacy that you get by setting the game purely in and around the town of Crossbell, hence the arc's namesake. By regularly meeting up with the same NPCs, combined with Falcom's insane attention to detail and updating everybody's dialogue once you hit certain story milestones, it feels like you're stepping into a world that reacts to what you're doing, placing an increased emphasis on your actions and your importance to the story. And given the different nuances and motivations that each character has, and you've got a crew that's not only entertaining to play as, but also fun to get to know. So if Falcom ever decides to do a full 3D remake of Crossbell, you know that I'll be there to pick it up on day 1. The original Persona 4 was the JRPG that brought me back to the genre after a short stint playing Western RPGs and Call of Duty. And while the game was released at the tail end of the PS2's life, the game's anime aesthetic, use of that bright yellow, capped off with that CRT look and feel, gave the game such a unique visual design that it proved once and for all that you don't need to rely much on technology to make great-looking games. But more than that, Persona 4's cast was very relatable to me. And despite everyone's opinions on the web about its characters, its story highlights the fact that people can be flawed, and that's okay. Moreover, the theme of seeking out the truth in yourself has to be the purest representation of the series to date, delving deep into the idea of shadows and personas that Carl Jung describes in his Ruminations, and showcasing a depth of storytelling that is really tough to beat. Between the original game and Golden, I've probably visited Yasuo Inaba the most out of every single JRPG I've ever played in my entire life. And every time I have, I always learn about myself and other people. I gotta be honest here. I've tried desperately to replay through the original Final Fantasy VII beyond my original playthrough back when it came out. And I just can't do it. That localization hasn't aged well, and patching to fix that is more trouble than it's worth. Which brings me to the Final Fantasy VII Remake series, which functions as both a remake and a sequel to the original. I'm not here to talk about the merits of its existence, but when you take the characters' journeys in both games, as well as the time it takes to build up some of the other characters in Avalanche like Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, and you've got a series of games that really does a fantastic job of capturing the spirit and the drama of the original, with a modern lens. For me, seeing my favorite characters in full 3D, fully voiced, and experiencing some memorable scenes, and building a new mystery on top of this familiarity moves me like no other. And I can honestly say that no other game has attempted something of this magnitude to try to bridge the gap between the old and the new. And when you reach the story's most pivotal scenes, you can't help but be brought back to those moments when you experience these stories for the first time. After all, isn't that what great characters are able to do? Whether you've experienced Three Houses or Three Hopes, you can't deny that the students of Garreg Monastery have affected you in some way. I wanted to recruit every single character in Three Houses, much like I edited my Chicago Bulls to have the best players back when I played NBA Showdown on the SNES. And yes, I used to play sports games. But the reality is that loyalties are strong in Three Houses, and it broke my heart to have to face some of my favorite characters after getting to know them well thanks to my time at the Academy. That's, of course, right after you swear fealty to one of the eponymous Three Houses in the game, each with their own merits and goals. Choosing your first house felt like a personality test of sorts, so what does it say about me when I chose Edelgard? That aside, Three Hopes serves as an alternate retelling of the events of Three Houses, with you controlling a completely different character and featuring Byleth from the aforementioned game as the antagonist. Yet despite the change in genre and its spin-off nature, Three Hopes gave me an excuse to hang out with my favorite characters all over again, with a ton of fun strategic action to boot. I promised myself that I would only choose one game for each franchise that I feature in this video. So while I absolutely love Dragon Quest XI's, I have to give it up to the game that brought me back to Dragon Quest after a short sojourn, Dragon Quest VIII. Maybe I just like small parties, as evidenced by Crossbell, but I absolutely love the cast of Dragon Quest VIII. Between my character, Yangus, Jessica, Angelo, the king, and the princess, the journey through Dragon Quest VIII felt like a playable anime, with its beautiful cel-shaded characters, fantastic voice acting, a vast world waiting for you to explore, and a fully orchestrated soundtrack exclusive to Western PS2 players. And while the 3DS release did add a few changes here and there, it's the original PS2 game that I'll always think fondly of. Just talking about the game makes me want to pop it in. But if Square Enix ever decides to mash all of the features of the 3DS release with the PS2 game and remaster that for modern consoles, I'd go for that too. The original Octopath Traveler just doesn't compare to Octopath Traveler II. The latter not only improved its storytelling and gameplay, but also introduced us to a cast of characters that's become some of my favorites in modern JRPGs. From the charismatic capitalist Partitio to the Holmes Watson-esque dynamics of Temenos and Crick, the characters of Octopath 2 brim with so much vibrance and life that contrasts with the darkness that's brewing behind the scenes. And yes, that's despite Oswald's broody nature. And what's more is that the game feels like it encourages exploration a ton more than the original, complete with quests that bring two characters together in their own journey, as well as a post-game that serves as the answer to many unsolved questions you may have encountered along the way. That's not even talking about its amazing voice acting cast, Yasunori Nishiki's incredible soundtrack, and the Industrial Revolution setting. And when you tie all of those together, along with its fantastic story and great characters, and you've got an instant classic that's representative of the very best of the modern age of JRPGs. I'm being a hypocrite by saying that I'm only letting myself talk about one game per series here, but Final Fantasy VI, despite many others trying to take its place in my heart, is still at the core of my love for JRPGs. That's due in part because of the wonderful characterizations, stories, and abilities that made every single character in Final Fantasy VI so unique. Edward's penchant for machinery in his weaponry, Sabin's Street Fighter-type inputs, Gao's ability to learn new skills from monsters, Celis's ability to absorb magic for herself. These and many more like them helped define an era of Final Fantasy to me that I long to have again. And when you blend all of that with the Esper system and a villain in Kefka that you'd love to hate, which, by the way, the villain did win, and you've got an ambitious and truly massive game that not even the most popular Final Fantasies have ever reached. Simply put, Final Fantasy VI, despite its deceptively simple pixel art and presentation, captures my imagination like none other. And it's all thanks to a cast of characters who affected me deeply, paving the way for some incredible stories that have truly stood the test of time. And these 7 games, my dear friends, are just some of the many other JRPGs that I felt had great characters. And I say some because I need your help reminding me of which JRPGs you felt had amazing characters as well. Post your thoughts in the comments below and let's talk about it. Also, I think JRPG genres can be better, and so I made a top 10 list of my favorite subgenres in this video right here, and I also share my favorite games in each. Keep in mind that this isn't all-encompassing, but I think you'll enjoy this regardless. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.